All right, diving in again with another deep dive. Today, something that, well, sounds kind of simple on the surface. How to think in English. Like, really think. No more mental backflicks, translating everything in your head.
That's it, yeah. It's a whole different way of processing, I think.
Right. Not just deciphering a code, but actually making English, your brain's native language almost.
The operating system.
Yeah, the operating system, not just an app you open when you need it. And speaking of opening things up, the expert we're looking at today from a YouTube video, she starts off, well, she kind of challenges you right away.
Ooh, I like a challenge.
Oh, yeah. She asks why you, like personally, you listening, why do you want to think in English?
That's good though, right? Gets you in the zone.
I think so. Makes you own it. So keep that in your mind, that while we go through her techniques, because it'll fuel your commitment for sure.
100%. Motivation is key, especially when you hit those roadblocks, which, we all do.
Okay, so technique number 1. She says, start naming everyday objects around you in English.
Seems pretty basic, right?
You'd think, but hold on. There's a layer here that's often missed. And the expert, she makes a big deal about it.
What's that?
Pronunciation.
Oh, of course. Yeah. So important.
Huge. And she actually tells this story about when she was learning like German, French, Italian, all around the same time.
Wow. Ambitious.
Totally. And she was like struggling to find good pronunciation resources.
Interesting. I can see that.
And guess what? That's what sparked her to start her YouTube channel.
Really? Full circle moment.
Right. It highlights how vital this is. It's not just knowing the word, but saying it right so people understand you.
Absolutely. If you can't communicate it properly, what's the point of knowing it, I guess?
And she even uses the word computer as an example. She even pulls up this tool, Youglish, I think it's called.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
To break down how native speakers pronounce it, because there's often that flap sound instead of a clear T.
Ah, the little things that make a difference.
Subtle, but huge. So even with simple naming, we see how you got to really listen, refine to sound natural.
It's like building those foundational blocks, those little sounds that make up the whole structure of spoken English.
Love that analogy. So you've mastered naming. Now it's time to level up. Building simple sentences.
Okay, getting more complex.
Right. Think of it like, I don't know, weightlifting for your English skills.
Right.
You start small, then add more weight as you get stronger.
I like that.
And she gives this example. You start with I'm, then describe something around you. I'm sitting at my desk. I'm feeling tired. My coffee is cold. Basic, but you're actively constructing in English.
Building those mental muscles.
For sure. And here's a pro tip she drops. When you hit a word you don't know, resist the urge to grab that bilingual dictionary.
Ooh, that's tough, but I get it.
Instead, she says, try a learner's dictionary, one that defines English words in English.
So you're staying in that English mindset.
Exactly. No crutches. You're forced to think about the new word in the context of English itself.
Like a full immersion experience.
Right. The more you surround yourself, the more it seeps in. Now, ready for a challenge? A strategy that might sound a bit, well, unusual.
I'm all ears. Hit me with it.
She suggests, get this, having mini conversations with yourself in English.
Wait, what? Talking to myself. Now that's a new one.
Yeah, I know, right? At first I was like, is this for real?
It sounds a little crazy, I gotta admit.
It does. But listen, I tried it with Spanish, actually. Went on this solo road trip, and the whole drive I just, talk to myself in Spanish.
That's amazing. Did it help?
You know what? It did. It was awkward at first, obviously. But it got me over that fear of messing up. You just let the words flow.
And nobody's there to judge you.
Exactly. Safe space to play around. The key is, and she stresses this, consistency. Do it for 30 days straight, even if it's just 2 minutes a day.
Small steps, hey?
Small steps, big results. That's the motto.
It's amazing the things that actually help. Talking to yourself? Who knew?
Right. Makes you wonder what other weird tricks are out there, huh? But yeah, it's like you create this little world where only English exists just for you to practice in.
Your own little English bubble.
Yes. Love it. And speaking of bubbles, the next strategy, it's all about taking that immersion and blowing it up huge.
Ooh, lay it on me.
It's Englishify your life. That's what she calls it.
Okay, I'm into it already. That sounds fun.
Right. It's a mission.
Yeah.
And she gives these really practical tips. Think about your day, all the normal stuff you do.
Just brushing my teeth, making coffee.
Exactly. What if you did them in English?
You mean thinking the steps in English while I'm doing it?
Even better, what about the tools you use? Phone, calendar, to-do list.
Oh, switch the language settings. Makes sense.
Boom. Even social media. Imagine scrolling Facebook and it's all in English. Constant exposure.
Sneaky way to get that practice in. I like it.
And it gets wilder. She says, narrate what you're doing out loud. Like she does this bit where she's doing laundry and it's hilarious.
Talking to the socks. All right, you're going in the wash now.
Exactly. Like giving yourself a live English voiceover.
Keeps it entertaining, that's for sure.
And this one, this is my favorite. Learn a new skill, but only use English materials.
So, like, if I want to learn, I don't know, how to knit.
You got to find English knitting videos, English patterns, English forums, the whole 9 yards.
So it's not just the language, it's using it to achieve a goal.
Exactly. You're reading, following instructions, maybe even chatting with other knitters, all in English. Deep level stuff.
Forcing you to problem solve in the language too, right? If something doesn't make sense, you can't just translate it quickly.
Yeah. You got to use the context, the clues around you to figure it out. Strengthens your thinking skills big time.
English detective work. I dig it.
And here's the big shift. English stops being this thing you study. It's how you get things done.
It becomes a tool, like powerful.
Yes. And as we've seen, it's not like one day you wake up fluent. It's building those habits, those tiny changes that rewire your brain over time.
Small steps, eh? We keep coming back to that.
It's the truth. And speaking of small steps, ready for one more strategy? This one uses that time right before you fall asleep.
Okay, I'm curious. My brain's usually all over the place then.
Well, she says, mentally recap your day, but in English.
Ooh, interesting. So instead of that mental replay we all do, make it English narration.
Exactly. Thinking about the events, how you felt, conversations, but all those words, they gotta be in English.
It's like a final workout for the language brain before you shut down for the night.
I love that. Not only are you reinforcing what you learn, but it's making that connection. English, end of day, relaxing.
And hey, maybe it'll even lead to some English dreams. How cool would that be?
I know, right? Imagine. But it just shows our brains are always working, even asleep. So might as well make it work for us.
Absolutely. It's like a secret weapon we all have, but most people don't use it.
Instead of stressing about tomorrow or scrolling your phone, boom, a little English brain bloat.
It's all about finding those moments, isn't it? And making them count.
And remembering that learning doesn't have to be this rigid thing. It can be in your everyday life. From chores to quiet moments, it's all connected.
I love that perspective. It takes the pressure off.
Right. You can enjoy the process.
Because when you're enjoying it, it doesn't even feel like work, you know?
So true. And speaking of enjoying the process, the expert, she highlights something that I think is so important. Keeping track of your progress.
Yeah, it's like we get so focused on the next goal, the next level, that we forget to look back and be like, wow, I've actually come a long way.
I know, it's so easy to lose sight of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
But having that record, it's like proof. You know, it shows you, hey, I'm actually doing this. I'm making progress.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be just like, checking off your study sessions. It's those little moments throughout the day that really count.
Oh, absolutely. Those spontaneous moments where you're like,
Wait, did I just think that in English?
yeah, like when you catch yourself reaching for an English article instead of one in your native language, it's like, whoa, my brain is actually switching gears.
It's those tiny shifts that make all the difference, I think. They're like little sparks of fluency that eventually ignite the whole fire.
And the more we feed those sparks, the stronger the fire gets, right?
Yeah.
The more we engage with English, the more natural it becomes.
It's like a snowball effect. It just keeps building and building.
And that brings us to another point the expert emphasizes. Surrounding ourselves with English as much as possible. We've talked about devices and social media, but it goes even further than that.
So what else can we do to create that immersive environment?
Think about all the ways we entertain ourselves. Music, movies, TV shows, books.
Right. That's all prime English material.
And it's not just passively listening or watching. It's about actively absorbing the sounds, the rhythms, the expressions.
Like really paying attention to how native speakers use the language.
Exactly. And here's the best part. You get to choose content you actually enjoy. British comedy, American pop music, classic novels, whatever floats your boat.
Make it fun, right? Make it part of your leisure time, not just another chore on your to-do list.
Exactly. As we immerse ourselves in that authentic English, it starts to seep into our brains and the language becomes more and more familiar.
It's amazing how our brains are wired to pick up patterns. The more exposure we have, the easier it becomes to process.
Speaking of how our brains work, the expert brought up this really interesting point about how thinking in English can actually change the way we perceive the world.
Now, that's fascinating. I've never thought about it like that. How so?
Well, she was saying that when we're always translating in our heads, we're kind of filtering everything through the lens of our native language. But when we think in English, we remove that filter and experience things more directly.
Wow. So it's like we're seeing the world with fresh eyes through a different perspective.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective can open up so much understanding and appreciation for other cultures and ways of thinking. Language becomes this key that unlocks a whole new world.
It's beautiful, really. And I think that's what language learning is all about, expanding our horizons, connecting with others, and just enriching our lives in so many ways.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And to wrap up our deep dive, I want to leave everyone with one final thought from the expert. She said, thinking in English isn't a destination, it's a journey of self-discovery, of pushing our limits and embracing this amazing language in all its complexity and beauty.
And every step we take on that journey, no matter how small, is a step in the right direction. So keep practicing, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep believing in yourselves.
Because we are all capable of achieving fluency. It's been a fantastic deep dive, and I hope you feel inspired to start thinking in English today. Until next time, happy language learning.